Desmond Dillon Paul Morton OCCD FRSC is a Canadian historian who specializes in the history of the Canadian military, as well as the history of Canadian political and industrial relations. Born in Calgary, Alberta, Morton is the son of a Brigadier General and the grandson of General Sir William Dillon Otter. He is a graduate of the Collège militaire Rhodes, the Royal Military College of Canada, Rhodes Scholar, the University of Oxford, and the London School of Economics. He spent 10 years in the Canadian Army prior to beginning his teaching career. He was named Honorary Colonel of 8th Wing of the Canadian Air Force at CFB Trenton in 2002. He received the Canadian Forces Decoration in 2004 for 12 years total military service. Morton is the Hiram Mills Professor of History at McGill University, as well as the past director of the McGill Institute for the Study of Canada, in Montreal, Quebec. As of fall 2011, he continues to serve at McGill as a professor emeritus. Prior to that, he was principal of Arundel College, University of Toronto, from 1986 to 1994. Before beginning his teaching career, Morton served as an advisor to Tommy Douglas of the New Democratic Party. In the 1980s, he informally advised Brian Mulroney of the Progressive Conservatives. From 1964 to 1966, he served as Assistant Secretary of the Ontario New Democratic Party. After the success of the famous 1964 NDP Riverdale by-election, Morton wrote and published the Riverdale Story, which detailed how the party's organizing and canvassing changed the way campaigns in Canada are run. In the 1970s he worked with David Lewis, Stephen Lewis and other party leaders to oppose the Waffle, a left-wing faction within the NDP. Morton received his doctorate from the University of London. He is the author of over 35 books on Canada, including the popular A Short History of Canada ISBN 0-7710-65094. In 1996, he was made an Officer of the Order of Canada. He has been a Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada since 1985. Views on Canadian social memory of the First World War. Morton has addressed the issue of whether the First World War was indeed a war of independence of Canada. He once wrote, "For Canadians, Vimy Ridge was a nation-building experience. For some, then and later, it symbolized the fact that the Great War was also Canada's war of independence." In 2008, however, he published the following remarks. Canadians are now being told by the government and its friends that we achieved the same joyous state on a snowy April 9, 1917, when 4 Canadian divisions advanced to capture Vimy Ridge at a cost of about 10,000 dead and wounded, enough to bring on a nationally divisive crisis as the English-Canadian majority tried to conscript the French-speaking minority for a war Quebec had never embraced. This may be Stephen Harper's version of history, learned in the schools of Ontario, but that would be selling ourselves short. Morton states that the abandonment of Canada by British troops in 1871 was a much more important event in the emergence of Canada as a separate nationality. Published works: French Canada and the Canadian Militia, 1868 to 1914. Histoire sociale, Social History 3, 32 to 50. Des Canadiens errants, French-Canadian troops in the Northwest Campaign of 1885. Journal of Canadian Studies 5 No. 3, 28 to 39. Aid to the Civil Power, the Canadian Militia in Support of Social Order, 1867 to 1914. Canadian Historical Review 52 No. 4, 407 to 25. Ministers and Generals, Politics and the Canadian Militia, 1868-1904, ISBN 08020-52282. The Last War Drum, The Northwest Campaign of 1885. With R. H. Roy eds. Telegrams of the Northwest Campaign of 1885. The Supreme Penalty, Canadian Deaths by Firing Squad in the First World War, Queen's Courtly, 79, No. 2, 345-52. Mayor Howland, the Citizens' Candidate. The Canadian General Sir William Otter. NDP The Dream of Power, The Queen vs. Louis Real ISBN 0802062326. Critical years 1857–1873. Kicking and complaining. Demobilization riots in the Canadian Expeditionary Force 1918–1919. Canadian Historical Review 61, No. 3, 334–60. Rebellions in Canada ISBN 0-531-00449-X. The Supreme Penalty, P. Canadian Deaths by Firing Squad in the First World War. Canada and War, A Military and Political History ISBN 0-409852406. Labour in Canada, A Peculiar Kind of Politics. Canada's Overseas Ministry in the First World War ISBN 0-8020-55869. Years of Conflict, 1911–1921. New France and War ISBN 0-531-04804-7. Working People ISBN 0-88879-04006. The New Democrats 1961–1986. The Politics of Change. Winning the Second Battle, Canadian Veterans and the Return to Civilian Life, 191530 ISBN 0-8020-66348. Towards Tomorrow, Canada in a Changing World History ISBN 0-7747-12813. Marching to Armageddon, P. Canadians and the Great War 1914-1919 ISBN 0886192110. A Military History of Canada ISBN 0-7710-65159. Morgentler vs. Borowski ISBN 0-7710-65132. Silent Battle, P. Canadian Prisoners of War in Germany, 1914-1919, ISBN 1-895555517-5. When Your Numbers Are. The Canadian Soldier in the First World War ISBN 0-394-2238888. Shaping a Nation, A Short History of Canada's Constitution ISBN 1895642108. The United Nations, Its History and the Canadians Who Shaped It ISBN 1-550742221. Our Canada, The Heritage of Her People 08886-6643-8. Victory 1945. P. Canadians from War to Peace ISBN 000255069-5. Wheels, The Car in Canada ISBN 1895642003-5. Who Speaks for Canada? ISBN 0-7710-65027. Working People, An Illustrated History of the Canadian Labour Movement, Canada, A Millennium Portrait ISBN 0888666470. Understanding Canadian Defence, A Short History of Canada ISBN 0-7710-65094. Bloody Victory, Canadians and the D-Day Campaign 1944 ISBN 1-895555566. They Were So Young, Montrealers Remember World War II, Canada and the Two World Wars ISBN 1-55263-5090. Understanding Canadian Defence, Phytopay ISBN 0-7748-11080. The Mystery of Frankenberg's Canadian Airmen ISBN 1-55028-8849. Billet Paul Affront ISBN 2-922865-401. Is history another word for experience? Morton's Confessions. The Canadian Historical Review Volume 92 No. 4, December 2011 in Project Muse.